Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our students, alumni, faculty, staff, and friends of the university. My name is Rick Goins, and I'm the director of the Alumni Association, and I want to welcome everyone to our first Chancellor Chat with our Chancellor, Dr. Terisa Riley. Today, Dr. Riley is going to give us a short State of the University address and then share some of the details of our plan for coming back to campus this fall. Following that, she will be answering some questions that were pre-submitted by some of our alumni. But I do want to encourage everyone to, as we go through the event, to enter your questions in the chat window. Rachel Putnam, our Associate Director of Strategic Communications, will be watching that window. And we hope to have the opportunity for Dr. Riley to answer some of those questions at the end. So it's my privilege to introduce our Chancellor, Dr. Terisa Riley.
Hello, thank you. Thank you. Some of you were giving me the clapping sign. I appreciate that. And I clap right back, but let me do what I would do if we were together in person, which is we need a selfie. So I'm just gonna hold my phone up here and get a picture of all of us together. If you just look at the camera and smile. Yay, okay, so I'm gonna post this later. That's gonna be our selfie for this event. I do them a lot when I'm with students and when we're walking across campus. It's so much fun to know that they want a picture with me is so humbling, but it's also a wonderful way for us to get our message out about the fun, the excitement, the welcoming kind of nature of UA Fort Smith. And so,
come here real quick.
Yes. I'm getting a comment. So let me also say, if I could ask you all to mute your microphones at the beginning. We'll open them back up later for any questions that you might have, but we'll go ahead and ask you to mute just so we don't have, you know, kids, dogs, partners, etc. in the background making too much noise, because I can't compete with those cuties. I just can't do it. So, and I wouldn't try. But it is so great to get to spend time with all of you today. This is not exactly the format I would have loved. It would have been great to talk with each of you in person, to give you the fist bump, the high five, the hug that we would normally be doing if we were together. And so it's unfortunate that this is the way it's gathered, but I will tell you, I think we have more people attending an event, or more people signed up to attend this event at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday than I could have possibly imagined. And certainly this means we may have a better chance of sharing lots of good and helpful, timely information with all of you. So that's incredibly helpful. For most of you, I've met you at some point. If not, this is a wonderful opportunity to meet you, and I appreciate so much and look forward so much to the day when we would do this together in person. But for today, I'm looking forward to talking to you more about what's happening here at UA Fort Smith. It's probably the best description is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Maybe the great, the bad, and the ugly. And so I get a chance to tell you a little bit about that before we launch into questions. So most of you know I started as the Chancellor here on July the 1st of 2019. And so I have not made it through a complete cycle here until obviously COVID-19 struck. It was about the 10th of March. I remember distinctly bringing our team together for additional discussion, putting out my very first campus message on that day to tell people that we were watching this pandemic closely. It hadn't even been declared a pandemic at that point. And the community really coming together to say, what do you need us to do? By the 13th, and through tears, I told this campus that we were closing. And it's not possible to tell you that without tears again. So to pull it back together, I knew we had to move everything online and move it quickly. I've never been so grateful to be in a place as I was that day. Our faculty, our staff, and our students, man, they are resilient and they rolled with it. Our faculty members immediately started to work with each other to help each other to put courses online. And we knew it wasn't going to be perfect. We knew there would be problems. We knew we had some faculty who had never taught online before this particular opportunity presented itself. Many of them now have done so and feel much more confident in doing that. In fact, they're doing it this summer. They will even potentially be doing some of that this fall. And so it has taken such a village to put all of this together, but this is the best village in this country, in my opinion. This is the only place I would want to have this kind of interaction, this kind of quick pivot with the hardworking people of this institution who are exceptionally well qualified and caring. That's just not a combination you find everywhere. And I remember coming to my interview in April of last year and feeling like that was true. And in good times, you could sort of see that and feel it. But when you are dealing with a global pandemic and a higher education crisis, you learn it's true. You have, the reassurance that it's true because of the people and their hard work. And so we moved forward through the spring term. And the reason that there were so many tears was I recognized the things we were giving up. The tradition and spirit of so many of the activities that we hold on our campus, we're used to doing them face to face. This is a teaching institution where we're incredibly proud of the knowledge that our faculty have and impart to our students in ways that they can take what they're learning and apply it, not only to solve real world problems, but also to work day to day in their best way, knowing the best information. They're able to apply that at work, to internships, to apply for graduate programs, and to do exceptionally well throughout life. Many of you who are alumni from this institution, you already know that. For those of you who are current students, you're going to learn that. And my guess is you wouldn't be on this Zoom call today if you didn't already feel that deeply as you interact with the faculty and the staff here. So I often say that although the spring term was a bit chaotic and certainly nothing we in higher education had ever experienced, although if I never hear the word unprecedented again, it will be too soon. My sense was that people actually kind of enjoyed moving things around and being forced into doing some things they might not have otherwise done, kind of moving out of that comfort zone, if you will, and trying some new things. That is really how we ended up the spring term. We weren't able to have commencement. That's probably the biggest difficulty for me outside of knowing that our students who graduated in May were entering a really difficult time in terms of job searches. So for those of you who don't know me, I have 4 children. Today, my twins are 23 today. I also have a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old. So they were all in college and they all came to move into Fort Smith. So the mom who took this job believing I had all kinds of time that I wasn't going to be spending with my children so I could devote it right here to my campus, became both the chancellor during a pandemic and had 4 adults move back into my home doing their online learning from my house in Fort Smith. My daughter Sarah graduated from Harvard in May, and she didn't get the commencement ceremony she'd hoped for. She has a master's in higher education administration and can't find a job. And that's the reality for many people right now. And I reminded her that I think she had spent about $90,000 for 32 semester credit hours at Harvard. Our students spent about $7,300 for 30 semester credit hours, and they both had their classes through Zoom. And that my students had some of the best faculty members I've ever met in my life, some of the most knowledgeable and caring and experts in their fields. Tremendous researchers, writers, scholars. The creative activity and the work that they do is just outstanding. So I will tell you, my kids have learned a lot about the respect and the care that I have for Fort Smith and for the University of Arkansas Fort Smith by watching this unfold through me. And they've also been really great for me as a mom to learn from them their perceptions of how things were unfolding at their own institutions, what they thought was fair or unfair, what they thought was right or not. I had a chance then, before I implemented something at the university, to kind of run it by my own little focus group at home. So it's been quite a time. We also made the decision that we would begin to phase people back to campus over the summer. I want to use this opportunity briefly just to do some shout outs of people who worked tirelessly to make that happen. And I really want to recognize Chris Kelly and Rachel Putman, our dynamic duo in marketing and communications. They have helped me to communicate my messages far and wide. They've helped to answer questions just that abound from this kind of a crisis, and to do so timely, to monitor all of our social media accounts, and to be strategic about how we release things. We have a core leadership team, our senior staff members, which include our vice chancellors and some of our associate vice chancellors, major campus directors, who have been absolute advocates for student success and for campus safety and the good health of all of our employees. And they have really helped to guide a process of returning to work on campus over the summer in a phased approach. So we've kept as many things online as we can without having a concern that that would jeopardize our ability to do our work well and safely. And in the meantime, that's given us the luxury of time for ordering PPE and creating a really pretty good plan for this fall. And so I know that I'll answer some of the questions that you have about the fall plan and the summer, but I will say that, again, there's really no better place to do the work that we're doing to educate people who will become this tremendous force for the future. People talk about, our students being our future. No, they're our present and our future. And they have helped to guide this plan as much as anyone. We've had lots of great feedback from our Student Government Association and from other students who've been willing and able to help us through navigating this time. And I appreciate them so much. So I know that there are lots of questions that you all have posed in advance. I don't want to take the whole time just sort of giving you the lecture about the institution, but I know that I'll speak to our enrollment, our budget, how we plan to do this crazy thing called reopening face-to-face in the fall, and answer questions that you have about all of that. So Rick has been kind enough to sort of gather those questions, and I so appreciate about 40 people or so that he polled before this, and he and Jasmine Smith have done a remarkable job of just gathering those questions in and making sure that they were representative of what alumni might want to know about what's happening on your campus. So Rick, I'll kind of turn it over to you and let you ask some questions.
Well, the first question, I guess, will students be able to attend classes face-to-face in August, or are we going to be totally online, or what is that going to look like for us all?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And frankly, it's the one that's been on everyone's mind the most, is how is this going to work? And you've all been reading lots of articles about that. And I will tell you, this is going to be the most dynamic semester of the history of this campus. I truly believe that, because we will be offering lots of options. So the very first thing that I will tell you I learned as a young professional, and for those of you on this call who are sort of starting out or in mid-level management, let me impart some advice. The very best advice is take good care of the people who work at your institution, because they are the ones who are taking very good care of educating and developing the students. And so with that in mind, we sent out surveys to our faculty and to our staff, and we gave them the opportunity to let us know if they had any conditions for themselves or people for whom they are direct caregivers for which they needed some additional support and wanted to consider moving courses online. We are offering several different options, and we know that we're going to have to be nimble and flexible in every offering that we have. So some of our faculty are going to be here face-to-face and teaching face-to-face. Some of them will have hybrid courses where they are mostly face-to-face with some of the content that will be occurring online. And that is basically asynchronous, which means that they're not all doing that at the same time, but there are assignments and discussions and things happening and sort of happening either with a deadline for completion or happening as people kind of authentically just log in and participate in their own time. This is really great, especially for our adult students who have children at home, for individuals who are working full-time and pursuing their degrees. That kind of model has been in place here for some time. And it has been incredibly helpful, as I said, for certain populations, especially to really be able to take part in classes, but also to work or to parent or to take care of others. But also they are working towards some alternating attendance in classes. So in order to provide a safe physical distance in our classrooms, you understand they can't be fully occupied the way that they normally would. 30 seats with 30 students just doesn't work to provide a 6-foot distance. So ultimately, some of our faculty members are going to stagger the class participation by students in person and then have the students who are not there in person online. So the way that looks, let's go back to that 30-person classroom. 10 of them might come on Monday, another 10 on Wednesday, another 10 on Friday. Or if it's a Tuesday, Thursday class, you might have 15 and 15 depending on the classroom size. Then the others who are not physically present are online and in a synchronous way at the exact same time as their classmates. They are participating in that class, asking questions. They're able to see what's happening in the classroom. That does take some new technology for us and certainly some training. And that isn't something that will be happening in every class or will be happening in many of the classrooms because we are in competition with universities all over the country to purchase that equipment, to get it installed by August and to be rolling. So honestly, that's not going to be in every single classroom, but we will have several classrooms outfitted with all of that technology so that we can place the classes that have that need into those spaces. Of course, we do have some that will be fully online, and those either were already planned for fully online or they are moving fully online as the faculty have chosen to do that for their own health or for the health of those for whom they're caring. Some of our staff also will be working remotely. They have asked for that as well. And so what we're doing with our staff members is really evaluating what does the position require of you? Is it something that can take place remotely and still be of quality and still produce the same kinds of results online? If so, then that may be possible. We're also looking at the entire department's operation. If every person in the department said they wanted to work remotely, that might mean something isn't operating correctly. So that might not work exactly for us. So we might have flexible schedules in some departments. We might have reduced hours in some of our locations. Ann and I just talked about the library, for example, perhaps having to have some abbreviated hours of operation during the fall semester simply because of a lack of the personnel who might be needed to run the library. So those are some of the things that we are working on, and we're encouraging that as we are looking department by department, we're working on those plans directly with the employees so that they feel safe, and purchasing a lot of PPE so that we can keep them safer at work.
Okay, another question is kind of a combination question. Will students be permitted to live on campus, and what will food service look like in the food court and the Lions Den?
Say the first part again, Rick, I'm sorry.
Will students be allowed to live on campus?
Okay, thank you. Yes. Yes, so our Lions Den and Sebastian Commons apartments will be open, and students will be able to dine on campus. In fact, I'm happy to tell you that we have put out a request for proposals and have chosen a new food service company. We will be using Chartwells for our food service on campus starting this, well, really this summer. Although there's not much activity for them this summer, this gives them a good opportunity to come in and set up shop, if you will. And so we will have food available on campus. We will have meal plans available. We will have all of our housing open. We are also setting up quarantine locations in both Sebastian Commons and in the Lions Den in the event that we have anyone who's ill, who has to self-isolate or self-quarantine, that we're able to accommodate them.
Okay. And so I guess one of the biggest questions is, will masks be mandatory?
They are, yes. And so the governor came out with an executive order, although I will tell you our plan already included requiring face masks or face coverings. And so I can tell you a little bit about how that would look or feel. Individuals inside or outside are required to wear a face covering, not necessarily a surgical type mask, but ultimately a face covering such as this handy dandy one I have in front of me to show off that our very own Janet Renwick made and donated the funds that she earned from this project to our food pantry. And so Janet, again, shout out to you for doing this. This was an amazing thing and a really awesome way for me to show my lion pride no matter where I am. So that's really fun and washable and reusable, which is great for the environment. So we have purchased masks for our faculty and staff members and for our residence hall students. But ultimately, we're expecting people to come wearing a face covering that fully covers the nose and mouth, that secures across the nose and across the sides of their faces. We're putting out some information about how to properly wear a mask. You'd be shocked at how many people just don't secure it properly, and ultimately it's not as helpful in those cases. So it might look a little bit elementary in terms of the drawing or sketches that we put out, but bear with us because honestly we have some people who have not worn face coverings and simply don't know how to secure them properly. So we're helping people to do that. We're also reminding people to do that. We understand that this is new for us as a society, and in which case, although very helpful, many people will simply just forget. And we want to give people the benefit of the doubt that it's likely they forgot to do so, and ask them to pick up a disposable mask for the day, but be sure to bring a re-wearable mask, one that can be washed and worn if they have them. If not, they can certainly order online or purchase them at our own bookstore, Barnes & Noble in the campus center. So not that that's a sales pitch or anything, but if they wanted a logoed face mask, that's another opportunity to purchase one. So we will definitely provide some for our faculty and staff since those are required. And ultimately, they'll be wearing them anytime they are in public spaces. They don't have to wear them in their own apartments or rooms in the residence hall. I'm alone in my office, so you can see that although we have a mask requirement, I don't have to wear one because I'm not in a place where I would expose anyone in the event that I am ill. But if anyone came into the office and I'm not able to maintain a good, safe physical distance from that individual, I'm definitely going to be wearing a mask, and I would expect them to do the same. So in our classrooms, we are expecting students to wear face coverings, even though we are creating a 6-foot distance between the students in those classrooms. We understand, obviously, that there are times when you may have other interactions. Small group meetings could occur. You could have a conversation that you need to have privately with your faculty member, and you go to talk to that person at the conclusion of class. Obviously, having a mask on throughout that entire process is going to be important. We also believe that there are a few times when masks may not be appropriate or warranted. So for example, faculty members in the front of the class, we're also providing them with face shields, which will help. Again, that reduces the chance that any of the droplets would be projected into the student seating areas. But it allows individuals who are lip readers, as I am, to be able to read lips potentially, because those are see-through or clear masks. And then obviously it allows them to be able to project their voices out into the student body versus into the mask, which can be a bit more challenging. I have a mask that was made for me by someone, not one of the Janet Renwick model, as I like to call them, but in that one, it is very tough to hear me. It's a bit muffled. And so I can imagine that we don't want students to have a tough time understanding the content of a course. So those face shields will help with that quite a bit. We will require them in all the other public spaces. And again, all of our events will have physical distances set up. We are rearranging seating all over campus to, again, provide physical distances between individuals who are maybe sitting and waiting for a class to begin or eating lunch or something.
Okay, so speaking of faculty and staff, we've had a couple of questions. have any faculty or staff, have there been any layoffs or furloughs? And how do you feel like that they have adapted to this new normal?
Okay. We have not furloughed or laid off anyone. And that was a firm commitment from the senior leaders on this campus that this is a time when lions take care of lions. And in fact, every day, lions take care of lions. But in this case, we made this decision that we would have grace, we would show grace for one another and patience for one another. There are some jobs that may not lend themselves fully to working remotely, but we were able to give those individuals assignments to do remotely to keep them safe and at home, particularly as we were navigating plans and making purchases and changing our physical spaces. That was really important to us. And we really don't want people to lose their jobs. It's important for this community to see leaders who are consistent and who are stable. It is important for those individuals who know their students or the staff members who know each other well to take care of each other. This is a time that mental health is very concerning. So we have people just checking in on our students and checking in on one another to make sure that we're doing well. It's really hard to be isolated from others, especially if, like me, you're an extrovert. It's making me so happy to see just your faces even. We may not get to physically be in the same space, but just seeing your faces and your smiles and your interactive, kind of body language has absolutely made my day. So I think from that standpoint, we have a lot of work that we can do to support each other during this time. So luckily we didn't have to do any kind of furlough or layoff. We're working to manage our budgets very, very closely. And so this particular spring was a bit different than we anticipated in terms of the budget. So I'm going to roll with that for a minute if you don't mind. We really projected to have less funding for a couple of reasons. We assumed that we would collect less in our sales tax revenue as a state. And we were asked as a university to reduce our appropriation by over $860,000 just for the spring. We had about 3 months to make that happen. And luckily, we had already been going through a process to review positions very carefully and had salary savings. And so we thought we would be okay through that reduction. We assumed we would have a reduction in our summer enrollment. We did not see a reduction. We were pretty flat in our summer enrollment. And we assumed that we would have a reduction in the sales tax that we collected within Sebastian County, again, with the assumption that if things are closed and people are not out shopping, that we would see a reduction in how much money we collected. And outside of the fact that I think my 4 children single-handedly kept every restaurant in Fort Smith open and going during this pandemic. I mean, I've had more delivery people who are like, hey, where's the red car that's normally in front of the house? Like, they know us really well now. They're like, you're the chancellor. Hey, we're back again. And practically, giving them lesson plans on my front porch that we did really well in Sebastian County. I was thrilled with how this county has sort of rallied and rebounded. Now, of course, that is given the fact that people received stimulus checks. They had additional funds in the unemployment benefits. And in some cases, they took advantage of some of the waivers that they received to wait to pay student loans, or that if they could not pay rent or utilities, they got some support there or some ability to wait to make those payments. But ultimately, those things stack up. We know that. The unemployment benefit may go away, the additional benefit outside of our state unemployment. And so we still anticipated a pretty rough fall term. And I think we probably won't be too far off on our projection. So what we were projecting for this coming school year is a reduction somewhere in the neighborhood of $8.8 million. All combined, that's really equal to a reduction in our Sebastian County sales tax of $2 million for this year. We anticipated a similar amount of reduction in the state appropriation. So to put that kind of in perspective, that's to about $24 million. Typically, we reduced it and assumed only about $22 million in state appropriation For Sebastian County, we had estimated 6.2 million, and now we have dropped that estimate down to about 4.2 million. And we are also estimating a real decline in enrollment. We know that many of our students are relying upon, say, funds that they put aside for college, and some of those funds have taken a real hit with the stock market. We know that some of our students have been laid off, or their family members who might have been helping them may have been laid off or furloughed. And ultimately, I think they are concerned about this investment. I've read lots of studies that would project roughly 20% of students were considering taking a gap year for this 2020-21 academic year. And so we actually estimated that our revenue from tuition, fees, and auxiliaries would go down by about 15%, which we believe was a pretty fair estimate. I don't think that we were being too extreme in that estimate. It did not mean a 15% reduction in the headcount enrollment, but about 15% in the tuition and fee, room and board payments from our students. And so given all of that, as I mentioned, we've been anticipating a reduction of 8.8 million for this year. Now, I will tell you that we put together a plan very quickly for how we could reduce our spending and use some of our reserves so that it would give us the luxury, and I really mean that, the luxury of the summer and the fall term to put together several different budget subcommittees that would look at a variety of different things for our institution to change our budget. And that could mean that we increase our revenues. It could mean that we reduce our expenses at the institution. It could mean that we change some of our organizational structure to accomplish that. And truly, nothing was off the table. And so I've been so excited. I'm reading some of the notes that our committees have been putting forward just about how industrious and innovative and entrepreneurial all of the members of these subcommittees have been. And they've literally no job is too big or too small for any of the members. They've done an exceptional job in looking at things. But our plan overall is for them to come to the entire university, all students, faculty, and staff, later in the fall term with recommendations that they then plan to bring to the budget subcommittee or budget committee of the university. That's a fairly new entity as well. So that budget committee would then prioritize those recommendations from all of the subcommittees and roll that into a final recommendation to me. And so I'm pretty excited about some of the things that I'm seeing. Several of the people who are on right now that I can see your faces are participating in that experience and giving lots of great suggestions for our university and our forward movement. And one of the things that I've really encouraged them to think about is that sometimes it takes spending some money and investing some money to make money. So they're also looking at where are the best investments for our money. Some things that you will see that will be different for us. We have a new web platform that we are working toward moving all of our websites into a new platform, Omni Update. Again, marketing and communications doing a tremendous job with how a new template would work for our institution, and then decentralizing those websites so that the departments can take ownership of some of the content to keep it up to date and to make sure that it's relevant for folks who are the major stakeholders. So I saw Stephen Hesrick on the call. Dr. Hesrick could absolutely, in a departmental website, share some of the work that he did when he was on his sabbatical and how he's been archiving the digital work that has made up quite a bit of his career and his teaching, and be able to share some of that across the globe. So that's just an example of something a department could do. We could also have really high traffic departments who are using that means to increase enrollment or to provide additional electronic opportunities for processes. And so that's amazing. It does take an investment. We have also hired a branding and marketing firm, Vision Point, and we've begun our conversations and have a number of stakeholders who will be meeting with them to give their perceptions and do a SWOT analysis of this campus, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I don't think any one of us would have ever put pandemic on the list before now. But so it's a threat, but it's also an opportunity for us to rethink how we do our business. And that's an investment that we had already committed to prior to the pandemic, and we're not going to stop moving forward our message as a campus to bring in additional students and to recruit the very best and brightest faculty and staff. So I think getting that message out is important. One thing I've learned about the people who are here is that you all just hide your lights under bushels. I don't get it. You are so humble. And I love to go out and brag about you since you don't do it for yourself. But we really need messages out to explain the tremendous outcomes of the education that you get at UA Fort Smith. And so having them help us to get that messaging out helps you all to humble brag. My daughter taught me that phrase. She was working on a cover letter for a job and said, "Mom, I don't know how to humble brag. I just sound like I'm really like selfish or really like I have a big ego." And I said, "Okay, humble brag. Let me think about that for a minute." And that's when I realized that's what we should be doing. Humble brag. Telling great stories, letting you know about the amazing things happening. We are also investing into a platform for communications and enrollment. The platform is called Slate. And basically it personalizes messaging and processes for students who are entering as prospective students. So they're interested in the institution, they may apply or they've applied and they're working through processes. It reminds them of things that they need to do in the process. But think to the day that you got any kind of a letter from UA Fort Smith. "Hi, welcome. We're really excited you're interested in us. Thank you so much, Chancellor Riley." It didn't say that, but it may not have really spoken to you. Can you imagine, let's say that you are, you're majoring in business and you actually get a letter from the dean of the College of Business. Right now, our interim dean, Letitia, might send out a message that says, "Hi, Teresa. I'm so excited that you're interested in the University of Arkansas Fort Smith. I can't wait to share with you some of the things I think you're going to be interested in that are happening in the college. I was just talking with Judy McReynolds, the CEO for ArcBest, and she can't wait to be here for one of our job fairs. She joins these kinds of people who come for those as well. And all of our students have internships while they are here, and they can't wait for you to join them." That just absolutely speaks to me as a student, that you care about me, that you know what I'm interested in, that you want to make it relevant for me. I don't think I'm going to go compare my letter to Landon King's letter, which might say pretty much the same, but maybe not exactly. So we have the ability to personalize those letters from everything you've ever shared with us, whether that's how you completed your FAFSA or how you applied to take the ACT exam. You give a lot of information every time you do any of those things that we can then pull in to personalize our communication. Now, obviously, Landon would tell you, "Are you sending me an email? That's old people stuff. Why don't you just go ahead and friend me on Facebook too?" That's what he would say. And I would say, "Sure, let's do that." But no, he wouldn't say that. He's way too polite. He wouldn't call me a boomer. He would instead say, "Text me," because I don't answer my phone to phone numbers I don't know, and I never check my email. I know you have to give me one, but I really don't want to use it. I want to get a text message I can choose to reply to, and I want that text message to also be personalized to me and allow me to interact with you the way I want to, whether that's through a chat bot that answers my questions in real time based on information we already have gathered as an institution, or if it's truly directly to me, human to human. I want to know that you care and that I am valued and that I'm special. I don't want to be a number to you. I want to be a name. And this platform allows us the luxury of making sure we are telling our students that in a number of ways, and doing it en masse for lots of students. So lots of investments are happening, and these are all happening, many of them remotely. People are able to work on them from home and to do so safely. They're programming communications, they are building out websites, they're working with branding and marketing, all during a global pandemic. See why I think this place is so great? Most places could never have taken all that on, much less taking it on now. So I appreciate that so much. And that's a lot more than you asked, Rick. But I felt like it's important for you all to know how great this place is, that they're moving all that forward. And I just get to sit back and humble brag.
Well, those are some very exciting initiatives. So one question that we got from several people is, how has the pandemic impacted recruiting? What do we think that enrollment's going to look like for the fall?
Well, it definitely has impacted how we recruit. As I mentioned, some of our communications have not been the personalized communications we're working toward, and many of our recruiting efforts have been face-to-face, which means we're definitely limited in a smaller footprint or region that we can serve with the resources that we have. When schools close down, we can't get recruiters out into the schools to tell you how great UA Fort Smith is. And in many instances, when those schools closed down and the teachers and administrators were working remotely, they also were not focused on how do I get information about careers or post-secondary education out. I just need to get you through this semester. I need to support people moving online. And so we really anticipate some real changes in enrollment as a result. We know that our numbers are down. We had already anticipated that in our budget. So again, I think we were very realistic when we put that together. One of the things that has been not surprising to me, because I know how volatile, we check these numbers every single day. We look at how many students have registered. We look at how many semester credit hours they're registered for, how many of them are brand new freshmen or transfers or readmitted students, how many are new graduate students, since we have 2 graduate programs. And so again, those numbers are really fun. One graduate program, we didn't have anyone in last fall. It just started in January. And so every day the numbers there are huge in our School of Education, which is great. But one day I was asked, what do the numbers look like for first-time freshmen? And I said, I almost don't even want to tell you a number today because it will change dramatically by tomorrow and then by next week. And the reason that's the case, let me tell you about the process of coming to school here. For those of you, it's been a few minutes since you were here. We require our students to go through a new student orientation process where they're learning all about the expectations, their rights and responsibilities, and we're helping them to navigate what is otherwise seen as just the bureaucracy of higher education by helping them to learn about it in an orientation program. After that takes place, they're then allowed to register for their courses because they have individual advising sessions. And I'll say that again, they're very individualized advising. So I might get an hour to talk to an advisor. I mean, when was the last time any of you even got an hour with your doctor? These advisors are spending tremendous amounts of time and investing heavily into talking with students about the very best courses and the very best ways that they can maximize concurrent enrollment that they've had in high school, to register for courses that keep them on track to graduate. Obviously, we're hoping for in 2 or 4 years, depending on the degrees. And so that would take place throughout the summer. We would have had a maximum number of people who could enroll in any new student orientation at any point, and then the students would register. And that would happen literally up until August. And so this year, God bless these folks, they put our new student orientation online. They put it all online so that our students wouldn't have to miss out on that critical information, on the support measures that they need. And to do that, they did it fast. But what that meant was that students then, at their luxury and their pace, could go through new student orientation. And you know as well as I do that those students who are going to be the great ones do it early. And some of you are smiling because you know. The ones who do it early, Darcy's like, yep, that's so true. That the ones who sign up early and do it at the very beginning are the ones who are going to do really well here. Well, I can tell you right now, we've got about 700 or so who are going to do exceptionally well because they all finished up their new student orientation in May or June. They've already registered for classes. So one day I looked at the number and we were up 25% in registration for new first-time freshmen. And that's the day someone called and said, hey, how are we doing on freshmen? I went, oh, I don't want to tell you. Because this is going to change dramatically between now and when we begin school. So we have seen a drop there. We're holding fairly steady about where we were this time last year in registration. We have another maybe 140 students who are registered with appointments. So we're going to start the term down. We will. And that's not through a lack of hustle and hard work on behalf of all of enrollment services. We have a new director of financial aid who is really reviewing financial aid packages and very anxious. She's actually worked here in the past and has family in town, so she's all excited to be here and be back with the Lion family, and really reviewing how can we maximize these financial aid packages to leverage recruiting great students who are likely to be able to stay and graduate timely. So I'm excited about where that's headed. I just know that based on her arrival time, she's working fast and furiously right now to help students just to get their financial aid paperwork in and to review those. So we'll be working a lot on affordability over the next year. It is one of the biggest issues that we have. Now, recently we looked at some data that was really impressive, I think, to many of us, and I don't think counterintuitive, but just it really helped to emphasize to us what we thought. Students who come here love it here. This is their choice. They want to be at UA Fort Smith. This should be the school of first choice. And we found out that the national average, about 65% of students at their institution say that the institution that they're attending was their first choice institution. And so we beat that national average. The students who come to UA Fort Smith reported almost 70% of them said, UA Fort Smith was our first choice and we're here and we're so thrilled. We're happy to be here. And it meets all the expectations we have and exceeds them. I truly will tell you that's the faculty and the staff and their devotion to these students and their learning and their opportunities. So I think in that vein, the recruiting, very different. We're having to reach out electronically. We know that it's going to be an upward battle for this fall, but partially it's because of the fact that people are there's so many unknowns. And I think once they have a much better sense of what's online and what's face-to-face and how will we help with protective, personal protective equipment, or how will we make sure that if someone is to become ill, that we'll take good care of them, that we'll make sure that they don't get off course to graduate. I think as I see that happening, they will be much more inclined to want to be here again as a university of first choice. We have seen a lot of data points that tell us that students are looking at how institutions are doing their business, and that the more caring they are, the more concerned they are about the health and well-being of the employees and the students, the more likely they are to come in the first place, and certainly the more likely they are to stay. So I think we're doing all the right things, Rick.
Sounds like it. One question is, will there be testing on campus? Will it be performed for students and faculty? And what does the turnaround time look for test results?
Okay, we're not just talking about final exams, folks. I think you're talking about COVID-19 tests, right?
Yes,
Okay.
COVID-19 tests.
I wasn't sure. I was looking at our students who were like, I'm not sure which one's worse. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Landon's like, no, that's true. So the COVID-19 testing is not available physically on the campus. We have an outsourced student health clinic, and that clinic does not have a laboratory that's capable of actually testing and then protecting the samples and then sending them to a lab. And so we're actually working with the Arkansas Department of Health and working to get a memorandum of agreement with one of our local clinics to provide testing for our students, our faculty, and our staff, that we could guide them to those locations. Of course, our faculty and staff almost exclusively have health insurance of some type and can go see a primary care physician or be directed to a testing location, and insurance would potentially pay for all of that expense. For our students, we definitely want to have those agreements in place that will not only help those to either be free or very affordable, but also to help to expedite any results of those tests. And so we'll be providing lots more information about how to go and get tested if people believe that they're symptomatic. There's also a really great tool on the CDC website that allows individuals to go through a self-screening process before making a determination on whether or not a test is even needed. And so it's kind of a guided process with a decision tree. If you say yes to this, then this. And if you say no, you go to a different response. And so we're also sharing that tool. We didn't create it, but it is an exceptionally good tool. It told me I'm totally healthy. So I believe it.
We had several questions about events. So has there been a decision? What restrictions will there be on campus events? Will there be an athletic season?
I just feel like you all were at my meetings all day today. These are things that literally all day I've been in these meetings. I had a meeting with all of our head coaches and our athletic director at 10, and at 11, I had a meeting with the event planning team. So if you've been staring at my schedule, it's a little creepy, Rick, but ultimately I can go ahead and share with you what we've learned and what we've been deciding. That's how fresh and dynamic this process is. It's constantly evolving. And we are bringing professionals together to kind of touch base with one another to be sure that what we're planning is the right thing for this campus. Again, I'm not going to tell you any plans until I start with the caveat that we are all going to be patient with each other and show an awful lot of grace, because we're going to be doing some things differently than we have in the past. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but it certainly won't be for lack of trying, trust me. So we know that our events and activities will be different. Of course they will. There's no chance that you can have an event or activity like you would have in the past. I was going through some of our pictures and looking at Cub Camp, which is a great example. So for those of you who've ever participated in Cub Camp or you know about it, it is really the kind of preeminent, you're a new student coming into the campus and you're making friends and learning leadership skills and learning about the traditions and spirit of this place and about resources, but ultimately you're learning a lot about yourself too. Josh says Cub Camp is the best camp. That's so true. Absolutely right on. But the pictures of that camp show these people who are hugging and doing, icebreakers where they're touching each other and they're all close together. And of course, there are no masks in these pictures because this is pre-COVID-19. And so you can imagine physically distancing those folks means we're probably going to do a lot more small group interactivity where we can safely distance wearing masks, where we're getting to know each other on a smaller scale. And it means the thing about this is, remember I told you the SWOT, there are threats, but then there are opportunities. The thing I love about this is that we need more student leaders stepping up to guide these processes, which gives more students opportunities for leadership. I think that's amazing, honestly. And I also believe that when you develop a small core group of individuals together, they stay more tightly knit. They're more likely to recognize if there are any cares or concerns among that group and help them to get help. So you can get lost even in a group of 40 or 50 students, but in a group of 10, not likely. So I really appreciate the fact that that kind of activity is still going to happen face-to-face. We have bid days, fraternity and sorority bids and recruitment. Many of those pieces will happen electronically and virtually, but bid day, I'm just remembering bid day and the students running forward and being accepted into the fraternities and sororities and so excited and being like hugged into this big huddle of people. And they can't huddle. Now they can physically distance wearing a mask and go virtual high five from here, but they will still do it in person. We may have to check temperatures of people before things happen now, but ultimately they will look different. And there was another piece you asked about events and something else, Rick, I'm sorry. And you're muted, sorry about that. I caught you.
Athletics and
athletics. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. So I worked with the coaches this morning and talked with them. NCAA came out with medical guidance last Thursday. And the guidance has some requirements in it that would be incredibly difficult for us to work out. Things like you have to test and have test results 72 hours before every single competition. I worry a lot about our athletes traveling and then coming back to classrooms after staying in hotels or eating in restaurants or playing against other people. I worry about their health and safety because although our traditional college age students are not necessarily in the highest risk category. They certainly sit next to students or have faculty and staff that they interact with, or that ultimately may be in high risk categories or higher risk categories. And none of us know what will change about our bodies post COVID-19, whether we will have any concerns about heart function, lungs, kidneys, etc. And I just don't want to put our students at risk. So we had a really good discussion about that as a team of coaches and athletic director today. And they gave me some guidance because this Friday, our presidents and chancellors in the Lone Star Conference will meet and make some decisions about how athletics may change for this fall. It was really important to me to talk directly with our folks who would implement any decisions that we make, to make sure that I represent our athletes, our students, our coaches. That was really important to me. I also know that at least 10, maybe it's up to 12 now, of the 24 conferences in Division II, because that's us in the Lone Star Conference, Division II athletics, have already said they're moving their fall sports to the spring term. And so I think that will be on the table in our conversation on Friday, and ultimately we will see where that goes. We have 18 schools in the Lone Star Conference. 8 of those schools have football, some of them have soccer. We don't have either one. And although I came here from Texas, never have I been so glad not to have football to worry about, because as it begins, I've already seen 2 of the schools in our conference that play football bring their students in, begin their practices, and then have to shut them back down because of positive COVID-19 tests. And so I don't miss that. If any of our Texas folks are on the call, I think I saw a couple who might have joined us. I'm feeling for you on that, because it is a really rough time, and none of you want to be sick, and you sure as heck don't want your students to be sick. I know that because they were my students last year. And I know how hard that is. But my students today have been sending me lots of direct messages. For those of you familiar with the terminology of sliding into the DMs, my students slide into the direct messages in Twitter better than they slide into Homebase, I swear. They're all contacting me, telling me all kinds of information about how they're feeling, what their fears are, their concerns. We have international students and international student athletes who, frankly, are not going to be allowed to be here this fall. And they want to know what that means for them and their eligibility and our compliance. But if they're not allowed to come here because they literally cannot fly here, we have to work with them, and we will. And we are doing that. Our coaches are tremendously supportive and understanding people, and they're trying to give them as much room as they can for continued conditioning and growth during that period where they definitely won't be competing. And we have some students who would arrive late. And we know, again, with those students, we'll just provide for them the most conducive environments that we can, and the safest place to be. But we will make an announcement after our meeting of presidents and chancellors Friday about what fall athletics looks like, and then look to implement that fairly quickly. But I've been really impressed with our coaches and their care and concern only for the athletes and their ability to get their degrees. I have not heard the same concerns from our coaches that I might have heard from other institutions. Things like, but what if I lose a player? Ours have said, no chance I'm losing a player. I'm going to make sure that we keep them on track to graduate. I mean, they just are going to be relentlessly communicating with their students, helping to guide them through processes, helping them to communicate and be empowered to work with faculty members to do their very best work. And it wasn't lost on me that 4 of the players on our men's basketball team last semester, even in a pandemic, made 4.0 GPAs. So those are the kind of student athletes we're talking about too. I mean, we're pretty lucky.
And then we did have one last question. What about season of entertainment?
Oh man, this was a hard one for us. This is supposed to be our 40th year of the season of entertainment. I asked Stacy Jones if he began the season of entertainment when he was like 4 or 5. He claims no. But ultimately, this has been really the joy of public service of our campus, where we can add to the quality of life for our entire community in this way, not the only way, but in this big way. It was really hard because we had to make the decision not to host any of those shows this fall. Now, that is not to say that we wouldn't do any shows with our own students and faculty. That certainly is still something that obviously our students in music and theater, et cetera, have demonstrated skills and competencies that they will do for their student learning outcomes in classes. But ultimately, we don't want to put anyone in an unsafe position. We also know that those touring shows are incredibly expensive. And if we're only allowed to use a very small percentage of a space for seating, it just becomes a situation where it's not feasible for us financially to do that. And I hate to see us be in a position where our students can't partake in it and enjoy it. So that's something else to consider.
The last question that we had from alumni is what can alumni do to stay engaged, and how can we help recruit and help the campus?
Okay, wow. That tells me a lot about our alumni. Thank you for that. And the truth is, that's probably the last question on a lot of people's minds, but the fact that it's on ours doesn't even surprise me anymore, because of how great all of you've been through this process and communicating with us, and ultimately in caring for our students always, and knowing what the benefit is of being a student here for yourselves. So some ways that I think alumni could stay engaged and connected to the institution: definitely stay in contact with us. We want to know what's happening for you. We want to know what's happening for your business, for your profession. We want to know what's happening with your family. I mean, ultimately, we say that once you are a Lion and part of the Lion Pride family, you always are, and that's absolutely true. So we want to know about that, and we want to be able to update your peers about that. We certainly hope that you will agree to participate, and I think Ron's gonna smack me if I don't remind everybody about our mentoring program. Right, Ron? So alumni can absolutely participate and mentor our students, and especially if you have a profession where you are interested in sharing information about that profession with students who may be interested in pursuing it, we would love to facilitate an opportunity similar to this one, where students could log in and ask you questions and learn a little bit more about the day-to-day life within your profession. We would love to have you do that. That's a great way to stay engaged and to be really supportive of our current students. We certainly believe that there are other ways to participate in events and activities. We want to do this one, but we have some really cool things up our sleeves. And I think Jasmine may be able to tell you with some excitement about a new series. So I had hoped to go out and do Chancellor Chats on the road. I really did. I had lots of different appointments set up. I was going to go. I had 3 different school districts. I'd set up appointments to go and meet with them and their counselors and administrators. And, COVID just really took a bite into that schedule. But I've decided I'm not going to let that stop me. Here we are today talking to one another, probably reaching people I might not have otherwise. But I also want to go out and show some support to our alumni-owned or operated businesses or nonprofits within our community. I'd love to feature them. So, for example, going out to a restaurant owned by one of our alums, and the restaurant owner shows me how to make the favorite dish, the thing that's ordered most often. Or we have a nonprofit where we're helping this community, and I can come and be alongside you, learning more about how you're serving the community and how your degree translated to this job, so that, again, our students are learning through that process. But we want to show you as alumni that what you do in this community or around this region is really critical, and it is what drives this creative economy that we have. And we're just proud that we got to play part of a role in that, but a lot of that is due to your tenacity, your engagement, your skills and development as a human being, but also probably because somebody took time to mentor you. Someone gave you a chance. Hire our students. Mentor our students, give our students internships. Let them work for you while they are in college so that college is affordable and they learn in the process. That's what I would ask from our alumni. Those are some major contributions they can make without ever writing a single personal check, although those are also accepted. So
thank you for that. We do have some great alumni. I did have one question. There's a possibility of no fall sports. Do we have any idea about basketball in the spring, or I guess that will come out of the meeting Friday?
yeah, I think we're going to have a discussion about that. Ultimately, we don't want to see any of our sports go without a season. You could imagine. We have a real investment in the students, and we really want them to have the conditioning that they need as athletes, or else they could easily become injured, and we don't want that to happen. We're hopeful that we will have spring seasons. It might mean a slightly shorter competition. I don't know if we would make a decision on Friday about basketball or not. It might just be on the fall, not the winter sports. So that sort of remains to be seen.
Okay. Well, I think that's about all the questions that were submitted or that have been submitted today. So Dr. Riley, and we're just about a little over an hour. Dr. Riley, we really appreciate your time and all the information that you shared with us.
Well, I thank you. I mean, all of you tuning in and listening, I'm thrilled to have you here. I'll stay on for a bit. If anybody has questions that they'd like to ask, I'm happy to answer them. But also, I would just mention that at any time, my email's open to you, my phone's open. Feel free to look me up on our website. You can't miss me. I would love to talk with you at any point, especially for our alumni or current students who have more questions about things or have suggestions. I love to hear those. Any way that we can improve as an institution, live up to your expectations and hopefully exceed them. That's exactly what we're shooting for here. We know that we offer great programs. We know that the faculty are outstanding. We really just look to you to make sure that we know what's in your heart, what's on your mind, and that we can answer those questions for you anytime. So I'm happy to talk by phone, to come to businesses and see you personally. And like we said, do some of those little videos where obviously we know it acts as good advertisement for you, but it also helps our students to see business and entrepreneurship and the whole community in a different way. My goal is that our students graduate and that they can do anything they want to, hopefully right here in our own community after they graduate. And so we appreciate the fact that you give them that opportunity all the time and want to encourage that. So again, I'll just stay on. If anybody has questions, you can certainly unmute and ask them. But if you all have to go, I understand that too. So.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. I do want to let everybody know real quick, this is the first of a series of 4 Chancellor Chats with Dr. Riley. Each one will cover a different topic. So our next one will be September 1st at 4 p.m. We'll talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion on campus. On September 21st, we're going to have a sales tax renewal discussion. And then on October 13th, we'll have a community collaboration discussion. Again, all of these are at 4 p.m. and we'll be posting events on our Facebook and Instagram pages and trying to spread the word to you via email as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everybody. We will stay on a little bit longer, but we appreciate everybody's time today. And Dr. Riley, again, thank you so very much for chatting.
Thank you. It was great to see everyone. Thanks for tuning in.